Miss Nicki Jhabvala covers the Commanders for the Washington Post. Hello, Nick. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you guys?
We're good.
We are good. We're excited for minicamp, honestly. Do you feel the same? Do you feel like we finally get to see him a couple days in a row and maybe figure out a little bit more about what we expect this season?
Yeah. I think this will probably be the first real glimpse we get it. I mean, there's still no pads, but, they've started 11 on 11, so you're starting to see more and more each time. So, this practice will be, 2 hours? So, yeah, I think it'll be really good. You'll start to see, what Jaden Daniels, some of what he can do in this offense, but I think you'll also see some of the missing pieces, too, and kind of what else they need to do this offseason to shore up the roster.
The intensity, you expect it to be a little higher than it was last year or in these previous years?
Definitely. I mean, I feel like the OTA practices were more intense than the most intense practice over the last 4 years. So, yeah, I would expect much more energy for sure.
The fact that they open with that bags drill,
I like it.
I do wonder if they are 4-7 in November, how much energy that bags drill will really develop. But, it does seem – it's hard. You know how people do those cold water plunges now to get their, endorphins running or whatever it is? That's the football practice equivalent of a cold water plunge. They're going to make you get moving and yelling and active right away.
If I were a player on this team, I would be wondering, Nicki, about that, what JB did. We're 4-7. I would be wondering what we're going to do other than this bag.
Right.
Because if you're not doing well, they may find something different that could punish you.
Yeah.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I would want to keep doing the bags.
That's a good point.
There is that.
That's a good
There
point.
is that. I mean, when you're only have 4 wins at that point, I mean, it takes a lot to get guys moving, as we've seen over the last couple of years. So, yeah,
Sure.
I think they'll have much bigger problems than their bags drill.
The flip side is if you're 7-4 in November and you've got whoever that might be, the Eagles on Thursday night coming up, you're fired up as hell for bags.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to. Hey, can you get me up to speed on the kicker situation and how you pronounce this kid's name?
I think it's Ramiz Ahmed. But yeah, he's the only one on the roster so far. He was last.
There's other guy they're looking at.
I saw something they might
Smith.
They might bring somebody in for a workout. Is that just aggregator nonsense?
I haven't been able to confirm that one yet. I don't doubt that it's true, but I would imagine they'll bring in at least a couple guys, if not a few, over the course of this summer and into training camp, just for competition's sake. I mean, the ones I'm looking at now are less in the UFL because my eyes were on Jake Bates. He didn't have such a great showing over his last 5 games. So I don't know. I'm looking at the Packers. They got 3 kickers on their roster. So, when rosters are formed, 2 of them are going to be available, and one of them has, at least 2 of them have, playing experience.
Sure.
So that's one thing
I was
I'm looking
suggesting
at.
go up to Baltimore.
What is Baltimore carrying 2 right now?
They normally have a second guy that's always better than everybody else.
Totally, dude.
Right.
Right. The one thing I think we all can agree on is that when they had McManus, that was the plan, and with McManus gone, the plan is competition.
That's it.
Correct.
And I don't think that's wrong. One of the hottest topics, I think, this week, and really perhaps all season, and unfortunately I don't think we get a real good look at this until August when they got pads on. How do you see the left tackle position unfolding, Nick?
Yeah, I mean, at this point, I could. A lot depends on training camp, obviously. It all depends on training camp and how Brandon Coleman looks. To me, at this point, I feel like you draft a kid like Brandon Coleman to really develop into that position. If he looks good now, you play him. If not, you got Cornelius Lucas on a 1-year deal. You start with him. I still think there's a chance they could also look at the waiver wire for that position, if anything for depth, but maybe competition. But I think that's one of those things where you didn't want to mortgage your future and try to trade up and give up a haul of picks. So, that's one spot that if it's not resolved this year with Coleman, you're going to be facing it coming up in the draft next year. And that'll be the position that they'll be trying to fill, assuming the others pan out as they hope. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely a concern. But they had pretty much I want to say, almost every spot on the roster to fill, maybe outside of D tackle. So you can't change everything in one off season. Yeah, exactly.
Right.
How does Trent Scott play into this?
He's a unit, man. That's a big man.
Because, I was talking with Doc, and he feels good about him at a tackle position. So I'm wondering, does he play any part in this thing?
I mean, we'll see, right? I mean, he didn't get any playing time last year. Yeah. I mean, and they went out of their way to not play him last year. So, maybe the old regime had a different view of him than this one does. I think we'll get a different sense of that as we get into training camp and you start seeing how they're rotating guys at that position.
Some of the roster decisions late last season in what was clearly a lost year are so bizarre to me. Get Mason Brooks on the field. I mean, you paid him extra to sign here. You're late in the year. If nothing else, let the kid get a game check. Yeah. I mean, you see stuff like that all the time. I mean, what were they, 4-12? You can't let the kid come up for one? Or how about the releasing Danny Johnson to sign the guy who I think is still on the roster?
Caillou Blue. Yeah.
Yeah, Caillou Blue. But then they had him inactive.
Right. I mean,
if you're going to release
no sense.
A lot of the
Danny's been up and down here for 6 years.
A lot of the personnel decisions from the last few years were not very, very intelligent.
Yeah.
I mean, you could point to, almost the entire draft class, frankly. I mean, the entire draft class
wrong.
Still does not make much sense, but,
Not wrong. Talking with our friend Nicki Jhabvala here on the BetQL guest line. We're all gearing up for 3 days of Commanders minicamp, and then it's 6 weeks off, and then it's the real deal, man. Then it's training camp, then it's games.
Real deal, Holyfield.
It's coming. We're probably, about 90 days out from game one, something like that?
A little bit less than that. It was 89 the other day when the Eagles posted a picture.
Yeah, but the Eagles start Friday. The Commanders start Sunday.
So probably about 89, because that was 2 days ago they posted that.
Nicki, who will be the second leading receiver on this roster, and then who will be third? And it doesn't have to be a receiver. Just receiving yards we're talking.
Pass catcher.
It'll be a running back.
Pass catcher, yes. Well, we're all assuming Terry is one,
will
right?
Stay healthy for 16 games.
Well, let's start here. I have Terry as the leading receiving yards player on the team.
Okay.
B, you with us
got
there?
Terry as one.
Okay.
But is this assuming Zach Ertz stays healthy, which is a big assumption?
Here's what I'll say. Zach Ertz has looked fantastic in the spring. He looks really good. He is a smooth.
He's supposed to look good in T-shirt and panties.
Of course. If you don't look good at your senior prom, you're just ugly.
Right.
He also seems to have a mental approach that I think you would appreciate, Brian, where it's a one finger salute to everybody that thinks he's got nothing left. And I think just from some conversations I've had around the team, around the building, they have a good plan to take care of his body. I would expect some veteran days off in August. He's not going to go every day in camp. Now, Nicki, you're saying, do you get 17 games out of him? I don't know. If you set the over-under at 13.5, I think he could be pretty damn productive.
Yeah. I think if he can stay healthy the majority of the season, I think he's definitely a contender for number 2. I still don't think we know what Jahan Dotson can do. And, I mean, he's changed coordinators every year he's been in the league. He had a pretty good start to his pro career, and then last year was a down year for him. It was a down year for most people, really. So I still think he could show out. I still think he's the most polished route runner on the roster. May not be the best receiver, but I think he's the most polished route runner. I mean, he can create separation like nobody. Luke McCaffrey, I still think is a wild card. I know he's raw. I mean, he's smaller.
He's McCaffrey,
but
though. Pretty good.
Yeah, I don't think you can underestimate McCaffrey. I think that would be foolish.
We got to run. You are from Cary. The U.S. Open is in Pinehurst starting in 2 days. Do you have a U.S. Open pick for us, Nicki?
I do not. I don't watch golf. I know. I'm going to get so much
Just say
crap on
Scheffler.
Twitter for that.
Just say Scheffler.
Scheffler. Let's go, Scotty.
Just say Scheffler.
Scheffler
There you
all
go.
the way.
There you go. Thank you, Nicki. We'll see you soon.
All right. See you guys.